So folks, I'd like to kick off by asking you a question. Do you have a personal brand plan? And for those that do, fantastic. I think the presentation that I'm going to take you through will help reinforce a number of those components or characteristics. If you don't, I think there's a lot of value in what I'll be sharing so you can build out your own plan. So to kick off a little bit about me, Ashley did highlight it, so I'll keep this very short. That's my mugshot. On the left-hand side, I am a personal brand advisor. I work with entrepreneurs and executives in a personal brand development role, as well as having extensive experience advising startups through to multinationals in a business brand capacity. I give talks around the country, and that's really in person and online like now. And I'm also a mentor. I am based in the greater city in South Africa, Durban, which has probably ruffled some feathers. I don't know if actually you want to respond to that, but I've got a healthy bias towards my city. I'm married. I have one daughter and another one on the way. And that's just a little bit about me. And I prefer dogs to cats on a personal level. When someone says branding, what comes to mind? And I know you're muted, so it's more for you to think about. When someone says the term branding, what comes to mind? Do you think of a particular company or a logo or a color palette? So those are the kinds of things that you're likely to consider. And if you were to take that a step further to say personal branding, is there anyone that comes to mind that you believe has a strong personal brand? Maybe Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, for example, examples of people with strong personal brands. A quote that I wanted to share with you, and I think it really hits home. If you're not branding yourself, you can be sure others do it for you. So the key takeout here is to start thinking about ourselves as brands, that we need to be deliberate. We need to be intentional with our plan, our personal brand plan. And that's hence asking you that question earlier, is that if we are not shaping or influencing how others perceive us, that's going to be open to interpretation, and it may not be favorable. So that's really where the value of being deliberate with building your personal brand. So my take on personal branding, it's the process. That's really the key thing here. It's the process of marketing your unique abilities to achieve your goals. Personal branding is an evolutionary process. As you get older, your personal brand will morph, it will evolve, and that's the key thing to bear in mind. So it's an iterative process. Simon, why should I care about building my personal brand? Well, I've got 5 key benefits that I want to highlight to you. It amplifies visibility, that your target audience know about you. And if you think about it, if someone doesn't know about you, they will never engage or buy from you. So it's really important that you're on their radar, that they know about you, so that it amplifies that visibility. It drives differentiation. And to my mind, this is a key facet to really the benefit of building your brand. Is it drives differentiation, that people know about you and that you stand out. As Martin Numa speaks to, he's a globally renowned brand strategist, when everyone zigs, you need to zag. So it's what makes you stand out, what makes you differentiated effectively. It can facilitate opportunities. If you have a strong personal brand, there are opportunities to collaborate, to be approached to give a talk, to be a panelist, to join said board or get involved in a particular project or startup for that matter, because you have a strong personal brand. It creates confidence. I really believe this, that you know who you are and what you're about, what your value set is, what you stand for. So that, to my mind, is really important. And what is key to also think about is if you've got a strong personal brand, it fosters trust. Trust underpins relationships. that you are consistent in your behavior. And to my mind, these are a number of key benefits. And ultimately, by building a strong brand, it drives business growth. The people are coming to you because you are the expert that you're trusted. So that's really a key takeout on the benefits of personal branding. What I would like to share with you today is a framework that I incorporate in my consulting, mentoring through to the talks that I give and in my workshops. And I wanted to share that with you. Before I go into this, something that's really important in building your personal brand is to think about your vision. You may already have this in place, but I'm going to reiterate. So my take on having a vision or vision statement is that desired future state for yourself in both a professional and personal capacity. So professional, I know there are a number of entrepreneurs in the session. Is it to grow your business, to expand into new markets, to launch products and services, whatever it may be? In a personal capacity, it would be very subjective. Maybe it's to find someone, to get married, to have children, whatever it may be. It's just that you want to be clear on what that future state looks like for yourself in both those capacities. And then to think about, well, in order to actualize your future state, you need to have goals in place. So this is where you effectively reverse engineering to say, well, if this is what I want to achieve, what are the series of things I need to do along that path? And I often think about goals as horizons. There's a visual dimension to that. So we all know short, medium, and long term. You can, or another way of thinking about it is, what is your horizon one, which is more immediate, short term, medium, more intermediate, and then longer term, as the term denotes. With that overarching thinking in place, it's then to consider your audience. Who do you want to speak to? Who is your ideal customer or client? Who are you relative to them? So that's your identity. So this incorporates elements such as your value prop or value proposition. It's your personality traits. It's your value set through to your roadmap. How do you engage your audience relative to who you are and who they are? It's very important then to measure your marketing activities in your roadmap. And then a fundamental thing to consider is you want to iterate everything that you're doing in your marketing, your communications, your networking, that you are reflecting on what's working and what needs to be improved. So that's really the framework that I want to share with you today. So audience. Your audience, for those that aren't clear on the term, is the ideal group of people you want to reach and engage with. And there are 4 segmentation variables worth noting. Demographics, which you probably have on some level. So when we look at demographics, we're looking at the study of human populations, and particularly from a marketing perspective, we're looking at a combination of physical characteristics and socioeconomic variables. So physical characteristics would include things like your age and life stage. So someone that's age 18 is in a very different space to that of, say, someone that is 80. So that would be an example of physical characteristics. You could bring in race, should that be important. You then want to overlap that with what is known as psychographic segmentation. And psychographic, we're really looking at the psyche of your ideal customer or client. What's important to them? What are those buttons, those levers, those drivers? What are they struggling with? What are those obstacles or hurdles? Or even it could be an aspiration. But what you really want to know is, what are they going through? What's important to them? And how can you, as an entrepreneur, solve that through your products or service mix or offering? The next aspect is behavioral. And as you probably gather, is intrinsically linked to psychographic. So here we're looking at the behavior of your consumer. How often are they buying said products or service? Which brands are they supporting? Are they light or heavy users? You're looking at the frequency. That it's really intrinsically linked to psychographic. What is the behavior of that consumer? And then lastly is geographic. And as the name suggests, it's really the geography or location or region of your consumer? Are they on the coast? Are they inland? Are they accessible online, or is it better offline? And what you want to do here is basically take this data that you've been building out around your core or profile and build that data out into a target audience profile. So you may have a primary profile, so that's really your core market, perhaps secondary, and maybe at a push tertiary. I just worry that the more profiles you end up having, you end up speaking to an entire population, and as a consequence, you're diluting your marketing messaging. So that's really what segmentation is. It's distilling down to that core group of customers. An example of someone that I think is doing an amazing job is Emma Sadler. You may be familiar with her and the work that she does. She is a renowned lawyer that specializes in social media law. And two platforms that I think she does a brilliant job on is both Instagram and Facebook. And I would argue that Instagram speaks to a younger market and Facebook increasingly an older market, and I include myself in that cohort. For example, she shares her thinking, this is a while back, but still really relevant. So she runs the digital law company, WhatsApp's new privacy policy, and basically her ramblings, her thoughts, her thinking. This particular piece, if you watch it, it's literally her with, say, her smartphone and just speaking to you for just shy of 7 minutes. This particular video has gone just shy of 200,000 views, and it's organic. So there's no ad spend behind that to promote the post. Where I'm going with this is she's speaking to an audience that care about this, that it matters to them. And in a similar breath, she shared a post around parenting and social media. And as you can see, it's about six themes to the post. And this particular post has garnered over 400 reactions, which is great, arguably. But where the real value lies is in the number of shares. And this is largely parents that are sharing on this content. Again, this is an organic post, and people are resonating with what she has to comment. And these insights are valuable to her audience, that they are actively endorsing and sharing that on to their communities. So where I'm going with this is she's really thought about segmentation and who her ideal audience is. A question for you to think about on the topic of audience: how many touch points do you think you have with your audience? And you may say, Simon, what do you mean by touch points? It's points of contact that either your prospective or existing clients have with you. So it could range on, and you break this down further into on and offline. So online, I'm referring to digital. It could be your website, it could be your blog, it could be your social channels. And within that, you could be on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. There's a multitude. Offline would be interpersonal. So whether you're meeting a prospect or your client over coffee, so that would be interpersonal, addressing a group of people, whether that be giving a talk or being a panelist, or maybe in a pitch type situation, depending on the nature of your work. These engagements all constitute touch points. So the key thing here is to think about, well, what are those touch points that you have? And what you want to do is ensure, to the best of your ability, is that you have that golden thread coming through. So if someone visits your website, that experience is the same as engaging with you via email or over the phone. You want to ensure that golden thread throughout, that expectation and delivery is consistent. So that's a really important question for you to think about. Some of the ways to unpack what I just shared with you in terms of on and offline: the way in which we dress, the way in which we present ourselves, meetings, both in person and online. Digital, if someone did a Google search of your name or your business, what would come up? Social media, again, is that reflective of what you want to portray? what you're sharing on Instagram or Facebook? Is there a pattern, or as I said, that golden thread on, say, LinkedIn, which is a more professional business platform? It ranges or includes other facets of digital. So your WhatsApp profile and your profile picture, your status, all these things prospects and clients have access to, through to the way in which you engage via calls and how you, or your delivery via email. Is there warmth in how you greet someone? Is there genuine interest in when you're speaking to them? So that's all conveyed through your tone, so how you say your message. And your marketing material. So again, I'm focusing here on social media. It would be your banner images on key platforms. It would be your marketing collateral. So if you've got any slide decks, it could be service overviews, it could be your email footers, it could be vehicle branding. It's all of those things. And what you want to ensure, as I said, that golden thread. And some questions for you to think about when it comes to your audience. Who comprises your ideal audience? You don't want to speak to everyone. My advice is you speak to a niche market that have a need or want for what you offer, and that you segment accordingly. What matters to these cohorts or groups? You need to be empathetic. What's important to them? Where are you most likely to engage, or where are they most likely to engage with you or see your personal brand? So is it through a Google search? Is it through social media? Is it via word of mouth and referral? So these are some key questions for you to start thinking about your audience. Then moving on to the second. Here, we're thinking about our identity, so who we are relative to our audience. And brand identity refers to the elements that make up your brand and clearly articulate how you want to project yourself to the outside world. So the way in which you can think about your brand identity is it's your brand makeup, your DNA. It's who you are and what you stand for, and how you project that to your key audiences. Take, for example, if we look in, amongst comedians, whether it be Trevor Noah or Coconut Kells or Skalk Bezuidenhout, they're all comedians, right? But each of these comedians have such a unique identity in terms of the way in which they present and deliver their shows, the way in which they dress. I mean, take, for example, Skalk Bezuidenhout. He's often seen in really eclectic jerseys, which look like they're probably from the 1980s. And that's core to his identity. So you want to think about the way in which we dress. And I'm not saying for 1 second go out and use credit cards to buy, fancy outfits. It's just thinking about, well, what do you have that you can create something signature about your personal brand? So some questions to think about in relation to those audience profiles that I spoke to. What attributes do you want to convey to them? What do you want to signal? How are you defining your personal style and engagement approach? So you want to think about, well, what does that delivery look like? Whether it's via email, whether it's in person, whether it's a call. And then this is perhaps a tough question, but a really important one. What sets you apart from your industry or field, or from others in your industry or field? What is it in terms of, or that you bring to the table that's differentiated? Is it your experience, your qualifications, your methodology, your IP, so your intellectual property, your framework? What is it, that thing that distinguishes you, that you can, 1, lock down on, and 2, communicate consistently? So those are 3 key questions around identity. Then what you want to think about is your roadmap. And I love the term roadmap because it brings in a visual, traveling to somewhere. You've got your GPS coordinates and your roadmap is plotting the path to reach that. This typically includes the channels, activities, methods, or ways to reach your audience. So my take on it is it offers structured steps to obtain your goals and critically preventing aimless communication and ensuring alignment. Rather than, oh, I better have a LinkedIn profile because that's trending and everyone's talking about that, or I just heard about TikTok, better be on there now. Rather than actually consolidating and saying, well, what do I want to achieve for my personal brand? What are my goals? And critically, who's my audience and what channels do they occupy? And thinking about that rather than just haphazard communication. Because if it is haphazard, you're likely to not get that ROI that you're after. So your return on investment on your marketing and communication activities. A way in which you can think about how to market and understand the various media formats is essentially what I'd like to share with you today. And the model itself I've sourced from a platform called Convince and Convert. And the examples I've included are my take with particular reference to personal branding. So you get 3 types of media. You get paid, earned, and owned. And I'll take you through each of those. So paid, as the name suggests, it would be paid social media campaigns. So sponsored ads could be that appear in your newsfeed or in Messenger or in your inbox. It could be Google advertising. It could be doing work with influencers or collaborations where there's a paid dimension. You then get owned. And as the name suggests, these are brand assets that you own and therefore have more control over. This ranges from your website through to your blog. If you do any email marketing would count. I would say to a lesser extent, social media profiles and pages. In that, yes, you may have a LinkedIn profile and page, or it might be Facebook or TikTok or whatever it may be. Yes, your brand's on there and you're engaging and sharing content, but if you contravene any of their policies, you could be suspended or banned from the platform. So I really then am of the view you don't own that media. You're more renting is a way you could possibly think about that. And earned media is the 3rd type. And I really see marketing gold with this. This is where you are either contributing or your brand's been spoken about in a favorable light. And the difference here is if you think of advertising, it's often directed to us, whereas earned or public relations comes at a different angle. So instead of perhaps aggressive or targeted advertising, it's earned through content that's been shared. So this can range from guest blogging for you to contribute to, say, a particular article. It could be giving a talk, which to my mind is one of the most phenomenal ways to get your brand out there and to get in front of your audience. It could be to be a panelist and to share your insights within the context of a specific industry or field. And if you win any awards or competitions, that could be an incredible way of really an accolade around the work that you're doing. So those are the 3 types. You get paid, owned, and earned. And hopefully what you're thinking about is, in terms of your roadmap, what are the various approaches that you are incorporating? So that's roadmap. That's the 3rd. An example of this playing out, someone that I have a profound respect for is a gentleman by the name of Neil Patel. Type in his name into Google and you'll know very quickly how prolific he is. To my mind, he is the #1 digital marketer globally, and he's phenomenally generous with the content that he shares. And he's on a number of platforms. He's got a YouTube channel. He's on LinkedIn. He's got a podcast with Eric Sue called the Marketing School Podcast, and they are daily clips that are shared about 5 minutes in length with very actionable, practical marketing advice. And he's really thought about his audience, which are, I would say, largely folks in the marketing brand communication space, because he offers consulting and software that would be of value to that market. So, and I would also include entrepreneurs in those two audiences. So it's really to think about who is your audience and what are the platforms or mechanisms or vehicles to speak to them. So some questions for you to think about in terms of your roadmap. Have you identified your audience clearly? Do you have a vague understanding as to who they are, or is it crystal clear? Who is your A-grade client? And the beauty of an A-grade client is they respect what you do, they pay you on time, and they're likely to refer you on because of the incredible work that you're doing. Who is that ideal audience? What matters to them? What are the industries or brands that comprise them? The better you can identify your audience, the better you can market and communicate, test, and get that ROI, the return on investment. So your audience is critical. Have you planned the channels or platforms for engagement? Have you done your research as to what channels that your target audience are on? And something I see so often with brands, and they miss the mark, is they will have an incredible piece of communication, whether it's an informative video or an interesting static post or an article, but there's no CTA that follows. So your CTA is your call to action. It's a thing you want your prospect to do next. Do you want them to subscribe to your newsletter, to follow you on said social channel or channels? Is it to phone you, to book a consult with you, whatever it may be? That's often a missing piece. So what I advise is for you to start at least incorporating on some level some form of engagement, posing a question or encouraging people to take the next step, whatever it may be. And what you want to do here is test various CTAs or call to actions. You may find a really low engagement if you were to say book now, whereas if you were to maybe drive people to WhatsApping you, I mean, that's certainly what I've got, for example, on my Facebook business page, is I have a CTA to WhatsApp me, and that's a really seamless way to start engaging with me. And because so many people in South Africa are on WhatsApp, it makes it a very easy way for a prospect to start the conversation. So it's really to think about what does that path effectively look like. So that's roadmap. Then we've got two sections left relative to the framework. Here you want to think about measurement. And if you're not measuring your marketing activities, your roadmap, you actually don't know what's working and what's not, to be blunt. So establishing metrics is a way to measure what is working with your marketing and what isn't. Because you could be spending a lot of time and resources and very precious budgets on your marketing, but you actually don't know if it's working or not. And that's really where the value lies, in saying I'm assigning or pinning X metrics to the specific marketing channel or silo. So within the context of wanting to, say, generate leads and sales, it could be that you use Facebook and your metrics could be reach, the number of people that see your content, what engagement looks like. It could be to drive people to your website. You just want to have those metrics in place to say, well, what's actually moving the needle? An example of someone that I think is doing a great job of building a personal brand is Asha Baker. She is a influencer and entrepreneur, and something to think about is, or certainly rephrase that, with her brand, her faith and blogging works, to my mind, seamlessly and with regard to personal brand and communication. So for example, As an influencer, she's doing work or has done work with Forever New. And the way in which you would measure some of her marketing would be a newsletter, and to see, say, off a website or whatever social channels, that traction to her newsletter, to see, what does that traffic look like? What does that open rate? Various tactics or methods, and to see what is actually working. So some questions for you to think about in terms of measurement. How can I make my personal brand more appealing to my target audience? If it's more appealing, it resonates more, you're going to get a higher interest and engagement. And that's going to help in terms of, if you think of an inverted pyramid, your sales funnel from top of funnel, that awareness through to purchase and post-purchase, there's going to be greater interest. What feedback or information can inform the refinement of my personal brand? And I don't know about you, feedback can be a bitter pill to swallow. We don't always want to hear feedback, but it's instrumental to our growth. It fuels our growth. And that's where the value of getting feedback from your clients, and it could either be in the form of asking them or sending out a survey and making it anonymous. And the benefit of, say, a survey is it's quantitative in nature, that you can get a very strong evidence measurement-based understanding around what's working, where they're seeing value, as well as potentially where the gaps are in their experience working with you. And then you can refine that, provided you see value. And the third question for you to think about is, how can I augment or enhance or develop my personal brand as my goals and audience evolve? And as you would have mentioned earlier on when I was explaining personal branding, it's really an iterative process. Our goals are likely to change. It's really to think about, well, what are the ways in which I can really engage? So that's really the value there. And then, folks, I'm just conscious of everyone's time here. Iterate. This is a really important facet. So iteration in personal brand marketing is the continual process of refining and evolving your image, so how others perceive you, and your message. Folks, if that's one key takeout from today, is it's a process. Building a personal brand is a process. There's no magic pill or way that you could suddenly be an overnight success with a strong personal brand. It takes years, if not decades, to build a formidable, trusted brand. So lean into the process, and that's where iteration really comes in. An example of this, Dr. Dambisa Moyo is a globally renowned economist, and to my mind, two ways in which I can see her iterating her personal brand. She gives a number of talks around the world. She sits on boards with heavy hitter brands, whether it be Barclays, 3M, Chevron. She really is a really dynamic lady, and her talks will offer a way to iterate. The feedback she gets from her talks, from the organizers, from the audience, the number of inquiries she gets, whether that be straight after a talk or subsequently with maybe an email inquiry. In the same breath, the screenshot on the right-hand side is from her LinkedIn profile, and the content that she's sharing there, and what that engagement looks like, the number of people that message her for maybe consulting, or for her to sit or to be approached to be on a panel or to give a talk. These are all ways in which we've got metrics, and then to measure the efficacy, to see, well, what's actually sticking and what's not. And to round off in terms of iteration, some questions for you to think about. What metrics matter relative to the goals that you've set? Please don't have a grocery list of metrics. I'm of the view, rather have fewer ones that really matter and measure accordingly. Then, and again, this isn't necessarily the easiest question, but really important one. How often are you reviewing your tracking? Do you check your analytics on, say, Facebook or LinkedIn every couple months, or perhaps a bit of an extreme every couple of years? That's too long a period of time to wait. You want to think about something that's realistic relative to running a business and all the things you're juggling with that. I mean, as we all know, we're wearing a number of hats, but to think maybe as a starting point monthly, if you don't have anything in place, it certainly is better than infrequently to look at your core platforms, your marketing activities, to see, well, what is translating? Who's my audience? What are they receptive to? What's not working? That's where the value lies. And to think about adjusting what you're measuring, and to think about, well, that particular post did really well, where, for example, maybe your profile picture was included and it was more personal in nature, like your 3 takeouts from, in running a business, or it could be a vlog format, might do better hypothetically to that of, say, something like you see on the screen, which, well, I think offers important questions, doesn't have that same personal dimension. So that's really what you're wanting to do with your marketing, is to see, well, these posts really work well and I'm getting a drop off with others. Let me double down on the stuff that works. And folks, in summary, these are the 5 facets that comprise my personal branding framework that I work to. I believe it's going to help really build your personal brand. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Naz.